in Europe that depict Our Lady as a mother, a nursing mother, nursing Jesus. And we see it in sacred art. We see it in all the statues and paintings and pictures through the centuries. We see it in poetry. We see it in sacred music. So we have a deep love and honor for the Blessed Mother as a Catholic Church, and there's no doubt about that. Everyone knows it. You see it in our statues in our front yards, Our Lady, and so this is through the 2,000 years history of the Church. We've had a special devotion. So why is that? Well, we can see the Blessed Mother from the very beginnings in Scriptures all the way in the Old Testament, referring to and foreshadowing her. So, for example, in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, after Adam and Eve fell, and God said to the serpent, "I'll put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her. She shall crush your head while you lie in wait for her heel." And so we see in Genesis 3:15, that's actually known as the first gospel, because it's a foreshadowing of what is to come. And what is to come is that God was going to separate the serpent from. I'm wondering if I could have it handheld. I'm just hearing some feedback in the screen. So from the beginning, God put enmity or complete opposite between the serpent and the woman and their seeds. So the woman is a foreshadowing of Our Lady, and her seed is Jesus.
So, is that better? So, in Genesis 3:15, we see it's a foreshadowing that Mary is the new Eve. And we can see, for example, that Mary is the new Ark of Noah, or Mary is the new Jacob's ladder, or Mary is the new burning bush, or Mary is the new Tower of David, or in Song of Songs, the enclosed garden. She is the new Ark of the Covenant. She is the created wisdom from the Book of Wisdom. So we see in the Old Testament Mary being foreshadowed, and so we have developed all of these sorts of devotions through the centuries that I mentioned earlier. To go further, certain prayers like litanies to Our Lady. We have devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. We have the first Saturday devotions from Fatima. We have the brown scapular. We have the little office of the Blessed Mother. We have Memoraries, which is the one of the oldest prayers. It was developed in 240 AD. We have devotions to icons like the Our Lady of Czestochowa. We have Our Lady of Fatima, Guadalupe, and Lourdes, which are private revelations. We have Our Lady of Sorrows, Our Lady of Hope, Our Lady of Snows. You know, in 352 AD, in the summer, snow falls in Rome. And so, which is absolutely amazing. So we have all of these devotions through the centuries, but the greatest of all devotion, of Marian devotion, is, and the most well-known, is the Rosary. And, you know, there's promises, 15 promises to praying the Rosary daily. And so the Rosary is actually something that has developed over time. But what's so special about it is so many popes have written on the Rosary and its importance. You know, Pope Leo XIII wrote 9 encyclicals just on the rosary, and many popes have offered plenary indulgences for just praying the rosary. So why is the rosary so great? Well, it's both vocal and meditative prayer. So it's the Our Fathers, Hail Marys, and Glory Bees, and then we're pondering the mysteries, and we're applying them to our lives and making resolutions. That's why the rosary is so wonderful. And it really developed over time. So in the early church, the monks and the religious continued on praying the Psalms. The Jewish history is they would pray and memorize all 150 Psalms. And so in the early church and through the centuries, the clergy, the religious, have prayed all 150 Psalms. Now we call that the liturgy, the hours of the breviary. And it's said that the rosary is the layperson's psalter, because the common average layperson for a long time was illiterate, couldn't read or write. So praying the rosaries this is what we did, was 150 Hail Marys for the 150 Psalms. But now St. John Paul II had to mess that up and gave us in 2003 the Luminous Mysteries. So just a little clue as to what he was doing, by the way. St. John Bosco, if you know anything about him, he had a dream. He had many dreams, but in this dream he had a dream of a ship, and it was in water and it was being tossed to and fro. And he said that on the ship it had 2 pillars, and on top of the pillars were Mary and the Eucharist. And he said that until those 2 great pillars would be anchored, the ship represented the church. And until the ship was anchored by those 2 great pillars, we would go through great turmoil. And what were the last 2 encyclicals before St. John Paul II died that he wrote? He wrote so many. But the last 2 was on Mary and the Eucharist. It was on the Rosary and on the Eucharist. I believe that he was trying to anchor those 2 great pillars of Mary and the Eucharist. But a little secret, that every saint in the history of in the 2,000 years history of the church, every canonized saint, they had devotion, strong devotion to the Eucharist and to the Blessed Mother. Even including, for example, St. Francis of Assisi, whose feast day is today, he had deep devotion to Our Lady. So the Rosary is an incredible prayer. But the crowning, so that is certainly the greatest of Marian devotion, is the Rosary. But the crowning of Marian devotion is, a good portion of you mentioned, you know about Marian consecration. The crowning of Marian devotion is Marian consecration. And so what is Marian consecration? It's giving your entire self to Mary, all that you have and are, to belong entirely to Jesus. It's a promise of love and gift of self that gives all that the Christian is and does completely to Jesus through Mary's motherly intercession. There have been many popes that have advocated for Marian consecration. Many saints who have drafted Marian consecrations. The 2 big ones today that we know of, that are the most devotion that we see, is St. Louis de Montfort's 33 Days. If you read True Devotion, his book, and then do the 33 days preparation and consecrate yourself. Or St. Maximilian Kolbe, who just wrote a Marian consecration prayer and encouraged doing it on a Marian feast day. St. John Baptist de La Salle wrote a Marian consecration prayer. And many others did too. But what's interesting is how many in here pray a morning offering? Great. So in the morning offering, we actually give ourselves to Our Lady. Dear Jesus, through the Immaculate Heart of Mary, I offer you all my prayers, works, joys, and sufferings of this day. In union with all the holy sacrifice and mass throughout the world, etc. Right? So it is a form of Marian consecration. So St. John Paul II, his episcopal motto was Totus Tuus. And Totus Tuus is taken from St. Maximilian or St. Louis de Montfort's True Devotion, and it's a Latin expression meaning totally yours. In the Book of Song of Songs, it says, I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. And so it's belonging entirely to Mary to belong entirely to Jesus. And if you think about it this way, God came into the world through Mary. And so salvation came into the world through Mary, through Immaculate Heart, through Immaculate Hands. And so we go through Mary to Jesus. And that's really what Marian consecration is all about. So, I want to dive into the four major Marian dogmas, and then the fifth doctrine, just as a friendly reminder. So, who can name one of the dogmas of the Blessed Mother? Just shout it out. Immaculate Conception. So Mary's Immaculate Conception was defined in 1854 by Pope Pius IX. And so is that when we just all of a sudden in 1854 said, oh, Mary was immaculately conceived? No, it was just simply the Pope defining it, saying we firmly 100% without a doubt believe this. So there must have been some reason at the time that he needed to define Mary's Immaculate Conception. But if you read the Fathers of the Church, if you read even in the Scriptures, for example, there's implicit references to Mary's Immaculate Conception. What is her Immaculate Conception? It is that Mary was conceived without the stain of original sin. So God preserved Mary by the graces of Jesus dying on the cross, retroactively preserved her at the moment of her conception in her mom's womb. She was free from all stain of original sin. And she remained sinless her whole life. So the two implicit references to Mary's Immaculate Conception is Genesis 3:15, which we just went over. The word enmity means complete opposite. So if you're opposite of the devil, then you must be completely holy. Okay, so that's an implicit reference. And the other implicit reference is Luke chapter 1, verse 28, which is, Hail, you have been graced. So in the Greek, so I don't know Greek, but I do know this word, kekartomania. The Greek is, Hail, you have been graced. So when the angel Gabriel came to Mary, he was saying, Mary, hail, the one who has already been graced. What is grace? Anyone know? What is it? Blessed, okay. What else is grace? God's life within us. A+ over here. God's life within us is grace. So grace, Mary was already filled with God's life before the angel Gabriel came to her. Okay? So it's a bad translation, the hello, Mary, or greetings. Greetings, highly favored one. Those are, it doesn't really tell us exactly what it's supposed to tell us. So it's hail, full of grace. So which is an implicit reference that she was already full of God's life before the angel came to her. Which means that if she's full of God's life, she can have stain of sin in her. So, the result of not having any stain of sin means that she would have had the preternatural gifts that Adam and Eve lost at the fall, which are integrity, infused knowledge, impassibility, and mortality of the body. Integrity is a complete peace and harmony within yourself. So she didn't have concupiscence, the tendency to sin like we do. So she would have had complete union with God in His will. All of her emotions, intellect, and her will were in complete union with God's will. She would have had infused knowledge, which was a knowledge of who God was, a relationship with Him. She would have had, she had impassibility, which was a lack of suffering. She did not have to suffer. So they say that, for example, that Jesus came into the world like light passing through glass. So my wife gets upset at that because we have 6 kids, and what a beautiful thing that is. So her pain was experienced because of our sinfulness. So she did not have to have pain and suffering. And then lastly, the immortality of the body. She did not have to die. So death is a separation of our body and our soul, and our bodies decay, and she would have had those greater natural gifts. So another major Marian dogma is the Assumption of Mary. Let's go back a little bit. We're going to go back to that in just a second. What else? What else? That's a perpetual virginity, yes, and then one more. We celebrated January 1. Mary is the mother of God. So those are the 4 dogmas. Mary's mother of God, her immaculate conception, her perpetual virginity, and her bodily assumption. So Mary, as the mother of God, was defined in 431 AD at the Council of Ephesus. And they were still discussing at the Council of Ephesus whether Jesus being divine. And they said if Jesus is God and Mary is His mother, then Mary is the mother of God. And so, but it was very strict in how they phrased it. So Mary is not the mother of the Father, and she's not the mother of the Holy Spirit. So we would say that Mary is the daughter of the Father, the mother of the Son, and the spouse of the Holy Spirit. That's how we would describe Our Lady. So she is truly the mother of Jesus and the mother of God, the Theotokos, the God-bearer. And we can read that in the Gospels that she was definitely Jesus' mother. And then the dogma of Mary's perpetual virginity was defined in 649 AD by Pope St. Martin I at the Lateran Synod. And he said that Mary was always a virgin before, during, and after the birth of Christ. So, that light passing through glass image. So Mary was a virgin before, during, and after the birth of Jesus. So, in other words, Jesus' birth was even miraculous. It was a miraculous birth. So, that is Mary's perpetual virginity. The objection is that we might hear is that it says in the scriptures, the brethren of the Lord, or Jesus, and so the word in Greek is adelphos, which means cousin, close relative, or even close follower. So that was all one word, adelphos. So you can kind of do the math and see if you go through and map out the other Marys and who people belong to. So Jesus did not have any other brothers and sisters. Mary did not have any other kids. She was a perpetual virgin. And then her bodily assumption, so this was defined in 1950 by Pope Pius XII. and Mary, it says that at the end of her earthly, having completed the course of her earthly life, was assumed body and soul into heaven. So one thing that's interesting is, we don't really have defined whether or not Mary died or didn't die. We don't know 100% one way or another, but we do believe that she was assumed body and soul into heaven. So the two people that we do know that have bodies in heaven right now are Jesus and Mary. And that one day you and I will, our bodies will resurrect from the dead, and we're in heaven. We'll have a glorified body in heaven for all eternity. So we will see each other face to face again, just like this, which is absolutely amazing. So, so some camps say that Mary died and she chose to, just like Jesus chose to die on the cross. But after she died, she was, assumed body and soul into heaven. Or some people would say she just fell asleep like the little missionary, and then was assumed body and soul into heaven. Either way, the assumption is that Mary was assumed into heaven. So there's the fifth Marian dogma. Can anyone tell me what that is? Marian dogma. I'm sorry, doctrine. It's not yet a dogma. It's not a dogma. All right. Well, I'm glad I'm here then. All right. So it is Mary as our spiritual mother. So Mary, as a last gift of all humanity while dying on the cross, Jesus gave us his own mother. When he said, "Woman, behold your son, son, behold your mother." St. John represented all humanity. And he gave us as a last gift to all of us his mother. And it says that John took her into his home. And so you and I, as Catholics, as Christians, we're called to take our Mary as our mother into our home, into our hearts, so that she's the queen of our hearts. So what is Mary doing in heaven before the throne of God? Just kind of kicking back and like, hey, I'm the mother of God? The church teaches in the Second Vatican Council document, Lumen Gentium, that Mary is mediatrix of all graces and advocate. And my college professor would add one more to that she is co-redemptrix. And so Mary is our spiritual mother, or we could call her our queen mother, And the reason why we want to say queen mother is this, because in the Old Testament, with the Israelites, in the kingdom, if you wanted to ask a request from the king, you had to go through the queen. But the queen was always the mother of the king because they had polygamy. So in the New Testament, Mary is the queen mother. And so we go through Our Lady, our queen mother, to ask a request of the king. So what is co-redemptrix? It just simply means that Mary walked with Jesus on Calvary and walked and stood at the foot of the cross and offered Jesus, her son, to our Heavenly Father as a prayer in the most fitting way only a mother could do. So she was there offering this prayer. So Jesus died on Calvary and won all the graces for us for salvation. But Mary, as Jesus' mother and as our mother, walked that suffering as well. St. John Paul II had an encyclical that he wrote called The Mother of the Redeemer. And it's all about this. So if you want to know more about co-redemptrix, it's all about that. And he actually called her the co-redemptrix a few times over, and same with many other popes. Okay, so it's right in a lot of church documents, and also some of the saints would call her things like benefactrix and things like that. So terms like that. So in fact, St. Paul talks about that you and I are all kind of co-redeemers in the sense that if we are praying for each other, then we are assisting in the redemption of each other, right? I mean, that's true. It is true. So if we're interceding for each other, praying for each other, then we're also participating in each other's redemption. So Mary does it in just a unique way. So Mary is the mediatrix of all graces. So Jesus won all the graces while dying on the cross, resurrecting from the dead, and but Mary distributes them. This is why we see our statues and paintings and pictures where Mary is standing on a globe, crushing the head of the serpent, and her hands are outstretched, and rays of light are flowing from her hands. The rays of light are symbolizing the graces. All graces flow through the immaculate hands of Mary. All of them. All of them. Whether we believe it or not. All graces. Mary is the mediatrix of all graces. This is the unique role in salvation history that God has given Mary. But the thing is just to put it in perspective, you and I have a role in salvation history too. We are called to participate in the grace of God, and so that we are saved, and then our families, our spouses, our kids, those people that are around us that we work with, our family members, we are called to assist in their salvation as well. That's our responsibility. Mary's responsibility as the mother of God and our spiritual mother is to distribute the graces that Jesus won in Calvary. And then advocate. She is advocating before the throne of God, interceding on our behalf. And she is praying for us. And we see this, for example, in St. John's Gospel, at the wedding at Cana, where she interceded on the behalf of the wedding party for Jesus to turn water into wine, which was, it's interesting because she was advocating for it's seemingly like frivolous temporal need. Something that you and I would be like, what does that have to do with anything? Okay, you ran out of wine. Okay, the party's over, right? But no, this is a really interesting thing that God cares for us so much. He loves us so much that He wants to take care of our temporal needs. Even turning water into wine. Even when we can't entertain our guests. He wants to take care of all of our temporal needs. And but in so doing, taking care of our temporal needs, it should lead us to the eternal. It should lead us beyond the temporal to go to the eternal. Okay, so this is how I want to close, and then I'll just ask if you have any questions. We'll talk just a little bit about further Mary as queen, and then I want to get into a little bit of private revelation, and then to tee it up for the bishop. He's coming next week, right?
2 weeks.
Oh, the last week. Okay. So tee it up for Father Roque. Father Roque. So just a little bit on revelation. So Mary is, how many pray the litany of Loretto? Litany of Loretto. So Mary is the Queen of the Angels. She, as the Mother of God, is higher than the mission of the angels. protects the entire universe from all harm. She is victorious over all evil, especially over Satan, as she crushes his head. She's in charge of commanding the angels in the various tasks. The angels serve and honor Mary as their queen. Mary is the queen of patriarchs and prophets. Due to her divine motherhood and excelling virtues, she far surpassed Adam in the state of innocence and original justice. Her intimacy with God was much closer than that of Abel, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, or Joseph. The prophets spoke of Mary in their prophecies. She had the gift of knowledge and understanding and far exceeded that of the prophets. Mary's most infamous prophecy is, "For behold, henceforth all generations will call me blessed." And we do. We call her blessed. Mary is queen of the apostles and queen of martyrs. She counseled and gave direction to the apostles. She consoled them and strengthened them when there was times of suffering and persecution. She prayed with them in the upper room. Mary sacrificed and suffered more than all the martyrs. She prayed and intercedes for the martyrs that they may win the crown of salvation through the ultimate act of love. Mary is the queen of confessors and of all virgins. She reigns as Queen Mother over all that believe in the faith of her Son. She is the queen of priests that offer the sacraments, especially in Mass. In confession, she prays for priests in a special way because they offer the sacrifice of the Mass, just as she offered the Son to the Father on Calvary. Mary is a perpetual virgin. She teaches the value of virginity. If we want our kids to be chaste, pray the rosary. She teaches that virginity consecrated to God is higher than simple chastity, since it promises integrity of the body and purity of the heart and for the whole life. Mary is queen of all saints. All human beings in heaven are saints, regardless of whether we're canonized or not. Mary is the queen of those who are officially canonized and those that are not. All saints honor and serve her as universal Queen Mother. She is the Queen of Mercy, Queen of Peace. Mary requests from her Son, Christ the King, that the infinite ocean of mercy is showered upon all humanity. She desires that peace of Christ reign in the universe, on the earth, and in our hearts, in every soul, and every human being. So that is Mary, our Queen Mother. I want to dive into private revelation and tee it up for the next 3 sessions. So, public revelation or divine revelation is God revealing Himself